the more that I got out there and actually was not scared to show exactly who I was, to be polarizing, to not necessarily try to welcome everybody in. Not everybody is for me, just like not every opportunity is for you, not every job is for you. Be okay to say, this is what I'm about and this is what I'm not about. And let that welcome you in and let that find you. Because then when that opportunity comes, when somebody is like, oh, you're my people, like that's the person that you want to work with. And we can make space for that by not making space for the stuff that we know for sure is not ours.
Hey, I'm Teen Zekas.
And hey, I'm Ilika Follett. We are business owners and moms with corporate backgrounds, and we are all about getting Black women paid in both corporate and business.
And you're listening to the Getting Black Women Paid podcast.
Let's go.
Hello, and welcome back to the Getting Black Women Paid podcast. I am Teen Zekas, your pivot and pay strategist. My lovely co-host, Ilika Follett, is not able to join us today, but as you know, I'm not going to leave you all hanging. We have a fantastic guest today who I am so excited to talk with. And we're going to be talking about how we as Black women can get paid more without working ourselves to death. And I know some of y'all are are in that process. So let's get right into it. So I would love to introduce you all to our guest today. Founder and your dream strategist, Rashidat gives Black women a real hands-on process to go from being a strong Black woman to soft, feminine, and rested, using coaching, resources, community, and guided self-discovery process, inspired by her lived experience to build the life they love from the inside out. After burning out as a fashion designer in corporate America, Rashidat figured out how to finally build the lifestyle freedom that she enjoys now. From helping Black women let go of being on all the time to redefining and living life on their own terms, Rashidat has helped many little Black girls who feel stuck in being an uber responsible Black woman find their way to grow and become the woman God has always known them to be. Her efforts have awarded her the freedom to work and live anywhere in the world while being able to be in her friends' and family's lives without having to ask for time off. And so, without further ado, I am so thrilled to introduce you all to Rashidat Odeyemi. Hello, welcome.
Hey, team. Thank you so much for having me and for that wonderful welcome.
Absolutely. I am so stinking excited for this conversation. And I would love to start with, kind of touching on your bio, just having you tell us a little bit about, who you are and how you came to be doing this work.
Yeah. So I would say how I came to be doing this work is I messed it up the first time.
That's all of us. Absolutely. We're all who we needed back when we were doing it wrong. Absolutely.
Right. Let's just start with being real. So I've made plenty of mistakes, and in the process, I finally figured some things out. So yeah, I was a young girl who wanted to get out of my situation that I grew up in. And so I went to college, and then college sucked. And then I got a job, and I thought that was going to get me out in corporate America. And then that sucked. And then I became an entrepreneur, and I was like, oh, this is finally going to be freedom because I get to choose everything. And I still had to learn some things about how to quit being a strong Black woman there too. And now I'm finally figuring out how to do that in all of those scenarios. And so I love being here to talk about how we actually get over that hump and really figure out how to work less and not use that to prove our worth and all of those things. It took me a long time, but I'm excited to be here to share how I finally got here.
Yes. And then you're sharing those years of experiences and expertise with others so that they don't have to go through the same thing you did. I love it. I love it. And there was one thing that you described kind of before we met for this episode that I definitely want to open with, which is that you describe how the American dream is the ultimate slave master scam.
Yeah.
Please tell us more about that.
Yeah. So here's the thing. When we step back and we look at it, you know, we were slaves. Black people were slaves. The American dream was never, ever meant for us. It was
Right.
instead for working class white Americans as a pathway to believe that they could finally arrive. They didn't
Mhm.
include us in that conversation, and they definitely didn't include Black women, you know, because we're at the intersection of not just racism, but also sexism, you know.
Yep.
So that was never made for us. But yet and still, because we have been for years and years and years, the mammies, the nannies, the people who stood up for our families,
Yeah.
who kept everything afloat, this strong Black woman that is always showing up in all of these different aspects. We got the brainwashing, I think, a little bit harder than everybody else because we really did think that our work was finally going to pay off, that we were finally going to be able to rest, that we were finally going to get the chance to arrive. And we've
Right.
actually found, you know, that work plus work has not equaled freedom. Instead, it's actually equaled a hell of a lot more work. And
Right.
now that we know, we're like, scam, 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 scam. We're calling it out, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I keep thinking about how so many of us are told you got to work twice as hard to get half as much. You got to
Mhm.
work twice as hard. You got to be more qualified. You got to be more educated. You got to be more perfect in all of your deliverables just to get what the white guy sitting next to you is failing up into.
Mhm.
And that has been really instilled in us, and it may be true for certain paths, right?
Mm.
That is definitely true for certain paths that we can choose to take, but it's not presented to us as a choice.
Right.
It's presented to us as this is the only way to get what you need, is to
Mhm.
be the ultimate, to be the best of the best of the best at all times, and you're still going to get passed over some or most of the time. And
That.
so what I love is you are helping us open up our view and expanding to, like, what are some of the other choices, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So tell us about that. I mean, so much of us are having to use our work to prove our worthiness, to prove our worth. So what does it look like to stop doing that? Like, what are the other choices?
Yeah. Yeah. So let me give you an example. One of my best friends, she's working on building a business, and as she's been building it, she's spent a lot of her profits on redoing her setup. Now, don't get me wrong. The girls set up for her business, for her shop. Whenever we do pop-up shops, it is fly. Like, it is beautiful. And
Yeah.
yet she's sacrificing the money of that perspective, that perception that we're building in exchange for making profit. That's what
Mm,
is happening to us in a lot of different ways. Because we've been told we have to be perfect, we've just been exchanging our rest for that perfection. And I think it's time for
mm,
us to just stop. And how do we stop? I think one, it's acknowledging that we've been doing it, which is really hard because it's hard to
yeah.
recognize our own complacency, our own complicity, like being a part of the fact that we've perpetuated it. And that's hard. I'm not
Yeah.
discounting that. And once we do it, though, once we actually acknowledge that, then we can start making changes, and we can choose to be like the C-level white man next to me and figure out how that man is raising, and play that game rather than
Mhm.
trying to overcome it by doing more. because he's not doing more, but he's getting more. We're doing more and getting less. So the math isn't math in here. We have to figure out another way to do that. And I would say the biggest thing for me, once I realized that working harder was never going to help me arrive, I had to look at every situation. And when someone offered, oh, well, if you would go a little bit above and beyond in this way, I would be happy to, promote you. I would have to very politely say, I really appreciate that you think that that's the best way to do it. But if you can't see my value and what I'm doing right now, then maybe I'm not the right person for it. And maybe I should look elsewhere. Like we have to start having those conversations. And team, you girl, I love your audacity about this. You get down in it and you're like, no, this is what we're doing. But we have to do that, not just in how we negotiate our salaries, but in every conversation, whether it's with our partners or whether it's with our any endeavor that we're going, whether we're building a business, whether we're trying to get funding for our business, whether we're, negotiating at the mechanic shop, whatever it is, it's happening to us in all of these different ways. And the more we practice doing it in every single one of those ways, the more that we get to this place where we're taking back our power and we're having better boundaries that says, I'm not going to allow you to keep treating me this way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I love in the example you gave, you can say no. You can say no to a quote unquote opportunity that's going to undervalue what you bring to the table. And, you're supposed to just be grateful for the exposure or whatever it is they're trying to do instead of paying you, right? Or whatever it is, that you can say no, thank you to those opportunities and pursue something better where, I am going to be held up for the value that I provide. And I love that you brought up audacity. That's been like my new word of the year. And it came from a person who I've coached who has more than doubled her income. Not by changing what work she does, but by changing where she does it and what she asks for. And she called me her audacity coach. And that was when the word kind of entered my my consciousness in terms of, yes, like it is about having the audacity to say, no, that offer you are bringing to the table does not suit what I'm bringing. And so I'm going to have the audacity to either ask for more or say, no, thank you. And that's huge. And so I'm wondering, for those who are joining us, who are saying, okay, so how do I do this? Right? Like what do I do in my life to, because I can't just say no to every opportunity. Right. So how do I get those opportunities where I am going to be valued? Where's a good place for folks to start?
I love that. I think first, and I want to bring this up because the fear that another opportunity like this won't come along is usually what helps us justify to settle.
It's that scarcity mindset. Absolutely.
Yes, it's a big thing. We have to talk about it. We have to acknowledge it, because if we're afraid that another opportunity is not going to come, we will sometimes take an opportunity that was not meant for us or was never even a good opportunity. We just were scared that another one wasn't going to come. And so we took it. And so the first thing is we have to practice our no. And that's scary. But the more that we practice it and the more that we use it, the more that we see God, I believe that we see God really show us and show up and show out and say, oh, my girl is finally getting it. Here's the next one. Are you ready to say no to that? Because if you can say no to this, then I got the next one for you. And every time, gosh, I've seen it so many times. Every time I say no to this thing that I know I really didn't want, but then the next I say no to it, and then the next one comes and I say no to that too. Something better comes. And that's just the belief that I have to have in my heart. That's a faith. That's a faith walk there. How do you get faith in that? It's trying it and seeing how blessed you get in it in the meantime. Okay. So we add that faith walk to, okay, well then how do I actually find more opportunities that are really opportunities that are good for me? I have found that the more that we talk our talk, the more that I've gotten on the interwebs, whether it's in LinkedIn, YouTube, podcast interviews, my blog posts, the more that I got out there and actually was not scared to show exactly who I was, to be polarizing, to not necessarily try to welcome everybody in. Not everybody is for me, just like not every opportunity is for you, not every job is for you. Be okay to say, this is what I'm about and this is what I'm not about. And let that welcome you in and let that find you. Because then when that opportunity comes, when somebody is like, oh, you're my people, like that's the person that you want to work with. And we can make space for that by not making space for the stuff that we know for sure is not ours.
Right, right. Well, and I wonder what your answer is to people who say, okay, well, I need to put food on the table, right? I don't have the luxury of saying no to the first offer because I need something. Is there a way to help with someone who can say, I'm going to take this first thing and keep looking for the next thing? Or like, what do you say to that person?
Exactly. It is a both and. This doesn't have to be an either or. This isn't so clearly as a black and white. I heard this dating coach say, I need you to be dating three people at a time. I need a gold, a silver, and a bronze. Come on. How could we not have the same thing for jobs? That's what they're doing to us. That's exactly
what they're doing to us.
So take that bronze until you can get to your silver. And then when you can get to your silver, move to your silver. And then when you can move to your gold, move to your gold. But don't plant yourself in somewhere knowing that this is where I am for a moment when you're not supposed to be planted there. This is a temporary space to move you to where you are in the future. I understand you got to pay your bills. You got people to take care of. And where you are today is not your forever. So don't get distracted from your forever. I love very much, it's very important to me to have, a lot of people call it a vision board. I call it a vision. I call it a vision board because it needs to be something that you are looking at every day that says, not where I am today, but I haven't lost sight of where I'm going. And as long as what I'm doing today is empowering me and directly correlating, getting me to there, then I am moving to where I want to be. And that makes this forward movement. Okay.
Absolutely. And one thing I try to encourage my clients with is to also not tether yourself based on different, kind of time boxed things that you think, oh, well, it's going to look bad if I move before more than 2 years or something. If you are in your bronze and the gold comes up, I don't care how long you've been at your company, move. And you can tell that story. This incredible opportunity came up and I took it. Right. The first role I took because I needed it. And, it wasn't the best fit. And then the best fit came along. That's your answer to why were you only there for 6 months? And so it's don't tether yourself to that. It's the both and be looking and be willing to move toward that thing if it comes sooner than you're expecting.
Yeah. Agreed.
Agreed. And the thing I started with when we were sort of introing you is that, we want to talk about how do we get paid more and not work ourselves to death, right? So many of us, again, we're trying to break free from that. You got to be the best of the best. You got to be putting in the 80 hours and all these things. How do we step away from that? I need to be going. I need to be on all the time and still be increasing our income?
Yeah, I think there's multiple things. At first, it starts with our mindset. But then it also starts with, can we put just as much energy into living life as we do into working? Somehow we've gotten confused that we live like work is the most important thing. And that's because we're in a society of hustle culture where to so many people, making more money is important. But what if it's really not? Like, we all know that when we get on our deathbed, none of us are going to be like, gosh, I wish I would have worked harder.
That is laughable. Oh my goodness. Yes, I'd never thought about it that way, but when you say it, it sounds ridiculous. I wish I would have worked harder is not going to be the regret you have on your deathbed. Absolutely.
Not even remotely close. Instead, we're going to say, I wish my daughter was only 5 once. She was only 5 for 365 days, but I spent 364 of those days working. Wow. You really wanted to be that? I don't think so.
Well, that one hit me.
We don't want that, especially when you think about the age. I think that's part of it. We disconnect it from time. And so we think we have enough time. I'll just come back to it later, but we don't. We don't get time back. You can always get more money. You don't get more time. And so, like, what I love to do with my clients is, okay, the first phase is we're redefining who we are beyond our job titles, beyond our work. But the second phase is all about thinking about 10 years from now, what do I want my life to look like? And 9 times out of 10, none of us are talking about our careers. We're talking about, wow, 10 years from now, my child is 5 right now, and she's going to be 15 10 years from now. Oh my gosh. Like, it brings it front and center of like the things that are actually most important to you and the things that you actually want to see happen in that 10-year span. And then when you are clear about what you actually want to see in your life, not what you feel the pressure to do, not the shoulds, but what you actually want, then we can break down what you actually want into, okay, how do I start making space to live those things right now? I don't want to get to the point where my daughter is 15 and I haven't built enough relationship with her because I spent all my time working. Or I don't want to get to the point where my daughter or my son is 21 and he's never been out of the country. And so he's narrow-minded and he can't understand why we have to do what we do. Or I don't want to get to the point where I'm too old and I can't get on a plane because now I can't hold my bladder. And so I can't be on this plane for 8 hours or even 21 hours to go from the States to Japan. Like, those are real things that we end up regretting on our deathbed or on that day when we recognize we can't do the things that we've done before because we prioritized work more than living our life.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my goodness. I want to touch on a few things you mentioned. The first is the idea of work being such a huge portion of our lives. The term that makes me nuts is work-life balance. I cannot tell you. First of all, those words are in the wrong order. Life. I want a life-work imbalance. Right? Are you saying that half of my life should be work and the other half is my family, my spouse, my kids, my parents, my siblings, all my relationships with those people, my friendships, my hobbies, my passions, my volunteer work, my interests? That's the other half, and then the one half is work? Come on. Like that. So just the fact that in our society we have normalized the idea of like the ultimate goal is to try to get ourselves to where we're only doing work for half and then the other half is everything else is absurd to me. So I definitely want to emphasize that for the folks who are watching or who are listening, that work-life balance is not the goal and that we need to even stop using that kind of terminology, right? That what do you want your life to look like? And yes, some aspects of that will involve, I'm recording a video and I'm not allowed to have kids on my YouTube. So I need you guys to go do something else for right now. Okay? I'm struggling with my life work imbalance.
I love it. It was perfect timing. I love it.
Can't even believe that just happened. I was thinking, oh, I got to edit this out. And then I was like, no, we got to keep it. This
Keep
is
it.
right. Why am I in a situation where I have to tell my kid no while I'm doing this podcast? Oh, that's so funny. Okay. So as I was saying, in the way that I'm not quite yet living up to, what do you want your life to look like? What are your priorities? And as you said, that, whatever's happening in your career may not be the most important thing when you look at what you want to do in the next 10 years. I'm trying to think if I can remember the other piece I wanted to address that you touched on.
Well, can you talk to that? Because here's
Yeah.
the thing. What just happened was beautiful. Is that not what life work imbalance should look like? That your children get to interrupt your work and the work is not going to fall apart. Like that
Right.
other people understand that we have kids. I don't have children, but that you have children, and that's a part of life. And that's what it means. That's what makes your life. That's part of what makes your life beautiful. And I have different things that makes my life beautiful. But if it can't interrupt my work, that means that I'm prioritizing that work over my life.
Right.
And that's where you're flipping it. Girl, you need to do a whole podcast on that one topic.
Yes. Well, and even the way that working remotely has really affected our relationships with our kids, because they see us constantly choosing work over them. They see us constantly saying, what you need right now is not as important as the job I'm doing. And that is so damaging. And so, yeah, absolutely. I want to do a whole episode just on that, at least. And the other piece I wanted to bring up that you kind of breezed by it, and I wanted to come back to it, which was how we define ourselves outside of our work, because that is a very quick, easy sentence to say and an incredibly difficult task, especially in a capitalist society where the second you meet somebody, they say, what do you do? And they don't mean, what do you do for fun? They don't mean, what do you do in your life? They mean, how do you produce for capitalism? Right. And so how do we start that process of defining ourselves outside of what we do for our job?
Yes. And it's so huge and it's so important. I would say, for a quick jump start, one of the things that was really important to me was getting into different personality tests and using those to help bring words and pull out words that I felt very close to my heart. Because we all know who we are, but it's like this intrinsic thing that's like in the back of our mind that we've never had to bring to the front of it, like that we've never really had to articulate. Usually when someone says, who are you? It's like deer in headlights. You're like, is this a pop quiz? Like, how do I answer this? Right?
Right.
It this out. Okay. So what I started doing was, as I got into different personality tests and really just started learning how to articulate and relating to the words of who I am, I started pulling them out and writing them down. And so in my course, or in my program, I have a whole list of characteristics. I've done all the research, I pull them in the pages, and I help people like pull out what those are. And you end up being just the top 3. Because if anything more than 3, you're not going to remember as well. And I want you to remember why those 3 are so powerful. So you pull out the top 3 and you talk about why they are so important to you. And you make those some of the things that you use to introduce yourself rather than your job title, because your job title doesn't get into what your passions are. It doesn't talk about the most important relationships in your life. It doesn't talk about, your connection to God. It doesn't talk about any of that. It leaves out so many other important parts of you.
Yeah.
So start with that,
Yeah. And what kinds of words are you talking about? Like, could we hear what your 3 words are?
Yes, I would love to share. So my 3 words are encourager, wise, and adventurer. And when I think about the word encourager, it's because anytime somebody is like, even if it's a little dream, I'm like, yes, let's do it. Before you know it, I got a plan and I'm running down the street with it before they're even ready to go. They're like, I'm not even ready yet. I get into it. It's so deeply me. And then wise. We talked about this a little bit at the beginning. I don't call myself wise because I know everything. I say wise because I've made a lot of mistakes and I've learned how to figure it out on the other side. Yes. And so that wisdom is because I don't let it hold me down. I learn from it and keep moving forward. And then the third one, that adventurer, listen, I am a free bird. And anytime my wings feel clipped, I get antsy. I get antsy. I got to be able to go. And I bring that fun, that excitement into everything. I can't help it. I literally cannot help it. And
because it's who you are. Because it's who you are. Oh, I love that. Yeah.
And you're like, oh, yeah, see them. That's what you want, you know?
I need to say, when you were talking about wisdom, you reminded me. So one Yoruba woman to another. My dad says, I'm going to butcher the actual saying, but it's something like, a young person may have the finest clothes, but they will never have as many rags as an elder. And when you talk about that wisdom coming from the mistakes, coming from the experiences that taught you so much, that's exactly what I thought of. And I wanted to tie that in because you and I are, are Yoruba cousins. For those who do not know, my maiden name is Odeyemi, and it's only 2 letters different from our guest here, Odeyemi. And we are, so we have that connection. I wanted to mention that, but I love the way that you light up, even as you're describing your 3 words, and you really get into, who you are, what you love. And, for me, I'm still working on my 3, but right now what I'm working with is empathetic, audacious, and funny. And those are my 3 right now. I'm still workshopping, but to me, yes, the audacity piece does tie into the work I do. And yes, the empathy piece ties into the work I do, but it's also about my relationships with my family, my relationships with my friends, my relationships with my kids, my relationship with my partner, right? Those are the things that are so valuable to me. And yes, empathy helps me coach Black women, but the thing that is defining me and who I am, it's so much bigger than that. It's so much more than what I do for money. And so I love that you guide people through that. And so I wanted to to make sure we highlight that and show a couple of examples of what that can look like.
Girl, you just rocked my whole world. You just broke it down. Listen, I might do these things in my job, but it's a manifestation of me. It's not the other way around. Yes. Come on. Exactly. Woo! I get excited, girl.
and I know, especially as, business owners, as solopreneurs, a lot of us are always working on that, that elevator pitch that, this is who I am, this is who I help, this is what I do. But when we talk about defining ourselves, it's a totally different mindset, right? We don't want to come into every conversation being like, I'm a career coach, or I'm a marketing expert, or I'm a whatever. That's not who you are. And so I'm so happy you're doing this work. And I'm wondering if you can share with us just a little bit about, how folks can be a part of the work you do. Like what kinds of things do you offer that people can take part in?
Yes, I love that. Thank you for asking that. So I do have a 12-week coaching program. It's called Meant for More. And like I said, I take you through these phases where we do these different activities. So the first phase is that redefining our identity. The second phase is the vision casting. And the third phase is that execution, but also learning how and when to pivot and how to keep your eye on the prize rather than throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And so again, I've made plenty of mistakes on that. So this is me helping you condense that process so that you don't make the same mistakes that I did, So that's one of the ways that you can work with me. And the way I love to really help people see how that works for them, as I have an exit plan call. And what we do is we get on the call, we talk about where you are today and where you want your life to be. And we create a plan of what it looks like to get to that, to what things are we letting go? What things are we making more time for? What is that 10 years from now? And how do we break that down in today so that by the time you leave the call, you have a plan? And then if it feels good to work together, then we talk about working, then we talk about getting to the program. So in addition to that, there's also Freedom Fridays. So many offers, so many things.
Oh my goodness, please tell us, what are Freedom Fridays?
Okay, Freedom Fridays are a party. Let's just be clear.
She's not lying. I'm asking what are Freedom Fridays for you all because I already know, but they are so fun. So please tell us more.
I love it because the way Freedom Fridays work is that whole thing that you just got on the rant about, making life the priority over work. That is exactly what Freedom Fridays is about. It's a completely free co-planning session where we get together and we create a list of fun and restful things that we should be doing regularly. And then we actually prioritize those things to go into our schedule first before we schedule work, before we schedule our priorities and all of those other things, so that we can really start switching our life to prioritize life over work. And every time we do it together, when we get on there, there's all kinds of giggles. People are sharing different pastimes and hobbies and restful things and different food that we're trying. I love it. It's such a great time for Black women to get together, to not just make time for rest and fun, but we also celebrate our wins and connect with each other. And I love it so much. So definitely something worth joining.
Absolutely. And I love the idea of actually scheduling in that fun and that rest, right? Because we can say, all right, I'm going to try to keep the weekend open, or I'm going to try to whatever, but then it's just, maybe I'm going to do nothing this weekend. And maybe that's what you want to do. But if there is something you want to do, there's something you want to pursue, how are you building that into your day and then schedule the other stuff around it? I love it. It's just such an important way to make that shift. And so I love that you do that. And so we'll include the link in the description for how folks can join you for Freedom Fridays and your exit plan calls. And tell us more about, I'm so interested in even just the name of that, the exit plan. Tell me more about that. Like, what are we exiting when we're making that plan?
Girl, such a good question. So often, I think when we think back to what we talked about, the American dream and this need to prove ourselves and working ourselves to death, I think those are all manifestations of this trope for us to be the strong Black woman. And this exit plan call is about exiting that whole trope and creating something new. A lot of us didn't know what else to be. There's a really good video. It's like media didn't know how to portray us. So that's what they created. But now we're saying, listen, that's not even going to work for us. We're exiting that and we're finding something else. And what I have kind of coined it as this Black woman audacity. So I love it so much that you are pulling into that word. Come on. Yes. But that Black woman audacity looks like choosing to be feminine, because a lot of us have had to rest in our masculine energy to survive. But let's not have to settle into that anymore. Let's settle into our feminine energy. Let's be soft. Let's be rested. Let's make time for us to settle into and really be that beautiful, rested, grounded woman that we deserve to be. That's what we're coming into.
Yes. And when you say exit plan, I'm picturing like an off ramp, right? Like we're just on the highway, just going the direction it's going because that's how we've been taught and that's what we've been told. And I'm just picturing that you are this beautiful off ramp. It's just like there's other stuff. So I
here.
Yes, exactly. So I love so much the work that you do. I think that it is just so important for Black women to to really to ditch that scarcity mindset, to embrace a different way of living, and to prioritize ourselves and to even know ourselves, right? To know who we are, what we want, and pursue those things. So thank you so much for the work you do.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. It's my honor. I feel like it's one of the gifts that the Lord gave me to do. So I appreciate sharing it. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Yes, absolutely. And so how can folks follow you or reach you? Where do we find you on the interwebs?
Yes, I am all over the interwebs with the same handle. Thank goodness. So at Dream Strategist, it makes it easy, except if you're trying to say strategist and you get all bogged up, don't worry. It's okay. I do it too.
Okay, so you are at your Dream Strategist in all the places.
All the places.
Okay.
Whether it's website, Instagram, LinkedIn, Pinterest, YouTube, preferably on YouTube. Let's just find me on YouTube, okay? But if you find me there, you'll find everything else.
Okay, so we will absolutely share your YouTube link in the description. And again, folks, join the Freedom Fridays. It's so much fun. And will you be? Should we also put in a link for your exit plan calls?
Sure. That's easy as well. Apply.yourdreamstrategist.com.
There it is. I love it. Well, thank you again, Rashidat. It's you are always such a delight to talk to, and I'm so glad that we were able to share you with our audience. So thank you again.
Thank you for having me, Teen. It's always such a good time. You are, girl, I get all excited when you bring out that audacity and you're helping us all see our value, not just in money, but in helping others see our value. And that's beautiful work you do. So thank you that you give us that permission to be audacious and really step up for what we need. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us in this episode of the Getting Black Women Paid podcast. And we will see you in the next one. Hey, thanks for watching the Getting Black Women Paid podcast. If you enjoyed the conversation, make sure you like and subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can catch more episodes like this one.
And join the conversation by leaving a comment below. Be sure to share this channel with incredible Black women in your life so we can continue getting Black women paid.
All right. We'll see you in the next one.